Good morning and welcome to How to Save Money and Boost Performance webinar. My name is Carol Berman and my day job is Managing Director of MAD HR. But today it's my absolute pleasure to introduce and welcome you to today's webinar. So why did we pick this particular topic? I think it's fair to say that after COP26, there was much talk about the importance of businesses stepping up and playing their part in reducing carbon emissions and helping move not only the country, but also the world closer to net zero. Combine that with soaring energy prices, we recognised that there was a clear call to action for business owners to review how they're operating, seek those opportunities to improve what they're doing, to try and work more efficiently, conserve energy, which saves time and money, and hopefully should lead to improving performance and profitability. In the spirit of MAD HR, which for those that don't know, MAD stands for Make a Difference, we thought that actually recognising these two challenges for business owners, it was important that we did our bit in bringing together some experts to hopefully share their insights with you and to offer you tips and guidance, but also to answer any questions that you may have. So just to remind you, I feel sure that many of you have been to Zoom webinars before, just so that you're aware, your microphone is actually on mute. So we can't see you, but we do know that you're there. There is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, if you could put in any questions that you have. We are recording this session. Now, I recognise that sometimes what that means is, I can now disconnect and I will get a copy of it and I don't need to participate. We would really love for you to stay with us, particularly given that there may be some really burning questions that you want to ask, and it's a good opportunity for you to tap into that insight and speak to those experts while you're on the webinar today. You will receive a copy of the recording and we'll also share any links with you that are discussed during the event. And as always, in the spirit of MAD HR and what we're about, we will be asking for some feedback from you in terms of how you found the webinar, so that we can look at organising events that are more relevant or even more relevant than for what you're dealing with today, but also to make sure that we can improve the quality of our webinars as a whole. So with that, the formalities are over. I'd now like to introduce you, if I may, to firstly Mark Sate, who is founder and CEO of Save Money, Cut Carbon. For those of you that aren't aware of this organisation, you soon will become aware of this organisation, because it's regarded as being the go-to place for people and businesses that want to reduce their energy and their water bills. The business has enjoyed itself rapid growth and now delivers millions of pounds of savings to its clients each year throughout the UK, based on its project management and its installation teams, but also it's deployed through its website. So it'll be interesting to hear Mark share his experience and expertise with you today. And I'm delighted to be joined also by Charlotte Bate, Director at MAD HR. For those of you that aren't aware of who MAD HR are, we are an award-winning East of England HR consultancy made up of a team of passionate employment experts and HR professionals. We launched in 2014 and have helped hundreds of businesses and their leaders navigate the tricky world of HR compliance with efficiency and ease. We're driven by our mantra, which is to make a difference, and we offer a range of retained solutions and ad hoc solutions designed to aid profitability and increase employee engagement. So I'm delighted to say good morning and welcome to Mark and Charlotte.
Good morning.
So I hope you're ready for all the questions that are going to come through. But if I can start, Mark, as the sustainability experts, one of the things that certainly seems to be being bandied around is some jargon, some terms that are being used quite regularly. What I'd like to do, if I may, is just ask, could you just explain what is net zero and net positive, and is there any difference between them?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think your word jargon there is really key. I think what's going on really is this is all in relative completely new. I guess, you know, like when the internet was created, or the steam engine, or the motor car. So I think there is a lot of jargon, and I think it's confusing to people on the street and confusing to businesses. I always ask, you know, take 100 people on this call or 100 people on the street and say, what does a ton of carbon even look like is an interesting question. Can I fit it in a matchbox, a swimming pool, or a football pitch? So let's start there. In simple terms, a ton of carbon is around about 5 double-decker buses, if you could visualize that at room temperature. And roughly the way we look at that in the UK is that an individual in the UK has about 12.1 tons of carbon they'll produce in a year. So an average individual like us will produce that. I think it's interesting to look at, that's not the same around the world. If you go to Sri Lanka, if you look at the data, what we produce in a month, which is a ton they produce in a year. So it depends where you are. If you look at then what net zero, which is the latest buzzword that I think's come out of COP26 and all those sorts of things, I think kind of it refers to the overall balance, if you like, but between the emissions you produce and the emissions you can take out of the atmosphere. And there's lots of ways, you can do that, from planting a tree to actually reducing your emissions in the first place. Mm-hmm. So put simply for me, net zero refers to the balance between the amount of greenhouse gases produced and the amount removed from the atmosphere. And we reach net zero as an individual, at your home, or as a business, when the amount we add is no more than the amount we take away. Okay, so I think that's the first kind of piece that's where we all want to get to. We all want to get to the fact that we're putting, we're taking out as much as we're putting in, or we're reducing that. Net positive is the next stage that people are starting to get to. And for me, that's described more as a kind of a more holistic view. It's a way of doing business that kind of puts more back into the environment, but also society and the global economy than you take out. And that is around your carbon reduction. I think it's around using true renewable energy sources and materials and supply chain. It's particularly, and we focus a lot of this at Save Money Cut Carbon, around replenishing and saving fresh water. That's something that's yet to come and hit us, but water shortages. It's through really about your products and services actually making communities and your customers better off, not just through your charitable work, but what you do in your business every day. And I think key why MAD today is asking that question and brought this together, it has to be people driven. So it has to be around behavior. It has to around people having purpose, living wages, exclusive opportunities. So I think, look at it as simple times 5 double-decker buses. We're all producing a ton of carbon a month in the UK. And if we lived in Sri Lanka a year, the first stage is absolutely to get to that kind of net zero, where you're at that 0 point. And ultimately, businesses, particularly if they want to move beyond that with ESG, environmental social government, is actually widening that thinking and extending it right across everything they do. And people's a key part of that. In fact, probably one of the key parts in that, because 76% of all the emissions is created by us, the people.
So with that in mind then, Mark, what role can business play in actually working towards that as a goal? And perhaps how would they know what they're even producing right now in terms of how big is those how many double-decker buses?
Yeah, so I think starting point is education and to learn. So to come on events like this and start to learn, and also not to be scared of it. It's a bit like when we all first started doing emails or using the internet. When something comes on that's new, it's about embracing it and having a go. And I always talk about, and we do a lot in Save Money Cut Carbon across our shop fronts for the home, small businesses, trade, and our bigger clients, is, start small, because lots of millions and millions of little differences can make a big difference, if that makes sense. So I think it is about understanding where you are now. And there's lots of different ways to do that. There's lots of calculators out on the website, on the web that you can look at. There is some basic education coming on events like this. And then it's starting to, I call it eat your elephant with a teaspoon, pick off some easy things you can do, if that makes sense. And I think one of the first things that organizations can do is to talk to their staff and talk to their people and see where they are on their journey, and start to embed in their culture that this is something the business wants to do. Then there's lots of companies and organizations like us that can take that to the next level. We come out and we start with a free carbon mentor call that we do to all of our clients, which is just us understanding, how much do you know? Where are you on your journey? Everyone's at a different stage. And then you can start to build your plans from there.
Okay. So one of the other things that there's been a lot of talk about is sort of this principle of corporate social responsibility. And now businesses are starting to talk less about that and talk about something called ESG. So what's ESG and what does it stand for? And
so all big businesses like a buzzword and some acronyms, and when consultants get bored of the last ones, they create a new one. I shouldn't. So CSR, you'll all know, is corporate social responsibility. And I guess the way I described that is it was really, I guess it started in the boardrooms of the larger organizations, but it's really a company's commitment to manage their social environment and economic effects. But I think the word in there is their company's commitment. So I used to see CSR very much as the glossy book on the boardroom table. Does that make sense? The look what we've done for charity this year, that sort of stuff. Well, I think ESG, environmental social governance, is really right across the board. It seems to be the buzzword at the moment. If you look at big organizations particularly, number 2 in most of those organizations now is in charge of ESG. That shows how it's come up the ranking. It's not a department somewhere downstairs. It's on the top floor, and it's very much about I think an increasing interest in both investors and stakeholders in what is that company doing. And it's about their ethical, it's about standards, but the difference is it's about governance and measurement. So it's not just about making a statement, it's about demonstrating and measuring and showing what you are doing across your environmental impact. Social, again, I'm going to come back to the people. What are you doing about in your people? And then the governance is how do you measure that? And often discussed as greenwash a little bit in this industry, oh, well, we planted a load of trees. What are you actually really doing? And I think that's the difference. I think people have moved now from the why should I do this to it's why not, and now it's about the how, and that's the difference. ESG is about the how, it's about tracking and measuring, and it's being driven, in my view, by consumers demanding it, and also in business you'll see increasingly, and we see this a lot, about finance becoming dependent upon it. Now, that might be at the corporate level, but you see people like BlackRock. You saw Aviva this week coming out saying, we will hold our invested businesses accountable at a director level if they're not doing this and we can't measure it. That's the difference. It's about measurement. In the same way, I think if you're looking at HR, you can have a great culture, but, as one point, how do you measure that and how do you improve on that? And I'm sure Charlotte probably got a view on that, but, the S is very, very important in ESG, the social bit, the people.
So I was going to say, Charlotte, so perhaps I can ask you to, why do you think ESG is something that SMEs should be concerned by?
I think Mark has articulated it incredibly well. It's about, there are so many benefits to a business that SMEs can't afford not to look at it, from a financial perspective, from a recruitment and retention perspective, to attract that key talent into their business, to look at how it can help to boost engagement, productivity, reduce costs. It's something which is very much on the lips of most people. We're bombarded through the media on a daily basis about this very, very topic, and it's something which is at the very heart of a lot of people, and so businesses can't afford to ignore it.
I think the other thing you also got to start thinking about is, when the big businesses at the top start to have to do this, then that flows down into their supply chain. So if you're a smaller business, and we're all smaller businesses in the Eastern region, and you want to win that contract with the council, or you want to win that contract with government, or I don't know, some big bank or whatever it might be, they're going to ask for this, and you can get hung up on what it means to the big businesses. But if you just, I think Charlotte summed it up there, it's just good business sense. It's about embracing in the core of your business and creating value for values. Does that make sense? And be able to pick that up when someone says, so it could be at any level, it could be someone that wants to join your company you're trying to attract, and we'll come on to that, but we're seeing a lot of people coming to us going, so I want to work for a company that's got purpose. That helps you recruit, it helps you retain. But I think if you're in a smaller organization that supplies a bigger organization, this is going to become part of the tender process more and more and more. And I think it's important that people like Mad HR host these sort of events to make sure that the smaller businesses don't get left out. And then when they're asked that question in the box on the tender, they don't look and go, I don't know what to do, because it's not as scary and as complicated as the consultants would like you to believe, if that makes sense. And it's not only for the boardroom.
Yeah,
I was going to say, and the other challenge, Mark, there is that usually when you are looking at the tender document, you probably left it to the 11th hour thinking, I'll get to it. And then, of course, the window of getting it completed when you suddenly realise that that question is in there can make you want to make a decision as to whether it's worth your while.
Absolutely. And that's really about, in the same way if someone said to you, tell me about your profit for last year, tell me about how many staff you got, tell me about your HR policy, you go and reach for those instantly in your business. It needs to be the same with ESG. And, that's what Save Money Cut Carbon was set up to do, was to make this stuff really easy to remove, dare I say, lots of consultants, if that's the way I describe it, and move to the how. So if you're a small business, you can build your own basket and you can do it, and you can look at the impact statements and you can measure it. You can just pick that up and put it in. And it's not all about what we do, but it's not, I would urge people to take it seriously, because it's just good business sense to have this stuff in the same way it's good business sense to have your HR in good order. It's just how you should run a business. And I use that phrase quite a lot about, it's about purpose in your business, and it's creating value from values. Don't just do it because ticking the box. Do it because it makes sense to do it.
Charlotte, what's been your experience of the clients in terms of their, the importance for this topic in terms of engagement, but also in terms of retention? You touched on it very lightly, but can you just expand on that, please?
I think it's really important. I mean, just kind of talking and following on from Mark, I think purpose is absolutely the key. Or employees, they do their research now. There was a LinkedIn study, and 75% of candidates will research an organization before they even apply for a job. So they're wanting to know what their future employer, what do they stand for? What are they interested in? And do they share, my values? Is it somewhere where I can see a future? And that purpose is absolutely key. And I don't know if anyone out there is recruiting at the moment, and what your journey is like. Absolutely, we are as well. But it is a candidate market out there. Good candidates are really, really hard to find. And so your offer has to be incredibly compelling to attract those key people into your business. And not just about attracting them, it's also about that whole kind of retention piece as well, because and this is all part of the sustainability piece. When you're recruiting for people, you're not recruiting for just right here, right now. You're also thinking about the future. What is the purpose of what we're doing? I think for business leaders, what business leaders really need to focus on, and the starting point is, what is it that we're wanting to achieve? So this term, sustainability, ESG, what is the impact that we're looking for? What's our starting point? And I think it's that starting point which is really important, because then that will help us to maintain focus and ensure that we can achieve something. So is it, is what we're looking for, is it about a cost reduction? Is it about looking for a different business opportunity? Is it about reducing costs, or attracting people? And as Mark said, how do we measure where we are right now, and what targets are we wanting to achieve? Because we often have the conversation, if you can't measure it, well, how do you know when you've got there? How do you know when you progress? And I think certainly, what the last 18 months has absolutely demonstrated is that we only have a finite amount of resource. Apologies, my dog is just going a bit crazy. Mark, I'm sure that you've got something to add.
I'm happy to step in and cover for the dog. So I think I can add a little bit on that, because we're a business that operates in this space. So I can sit in front of candidates and say, last year we saved 727 million litres of water and 23 million kilo and all that sort of stuff, because I have that data to hand. But it's a really difficult market. We're hiring probably 10 people a month. And we're finding two things. We're finding at the what I call the younger graduate Gen Z level, this is absolutely driving them. So if you look, there's a lot of research out there at the moment around this is kind of number 2 in the pecking order for Gen Z, whether they're picking a bank or an insurance, or this is really high on their agenda. They get it. It's the older people like me that need a bit of convincing, or whatever it might be. And then at the other end, we're seeing big people in big corporates. I've just got a new guy coming to run one of my divisions as an MD that's come from a corporate with 195,000 staff globally. And he doesn't want to be a number anymore. He's quite senior, but he doesn't want to be a number. He wants to come and build and make a difference. And, you know, my brief to him is like, come and save the planet. And it's like running your own business, but you've not had to mortgage your house. I mortgaged mine. I think it's really important. And then once you've got those people in the business, you want to retain them. And we're seeing all the time, you know, working with a business that's got purpose is really, really important to people. And a lot of people are doing this in their homes. This is, you know, they're passionate about this stuff. So I think it's important like that. I think then also there's an overlay for the Eastern region, because, you know, I have big corporate investors, I have a board, and they're all like, yeah, let's move it to London or Shoreditch or somewhere, and it'll be a lot faster and a lot funkier. Because East Anglia doesn't, you know, does in Cambridge, but outside of that, it's not easy to get people to come and work here. We're based in Bury St Edmunds because I live in Bury St Edmunds, and I hang on with my fingertips because support for fast-growing businesses doesn't exist like it does in other areas. So, you know, the first problem I've just employed a new CMO, but, you know, how do I get her to come to Bury? Now we're all working virtually, so that problem has been resolved slightly, but I think it's for the Eastern region. You know, if you've got a business up here that has got real purpose, that can attract, that's growing, that, you know, Mad HR being a good example, I think the COVID thing has made us all think twice about whether we want to get on the tube to the big corporate every day. So ESG for me is exactly that. It's about attracting great people from big companies and young super graduates and they meet in the middle, and you get a super team together. You got the experience and the enthusiasm, and then retaining those people. So I think it's key. I just think you won't get great staff unless you do this stuff in the future. And it will be the next generation coming out of colleges and schools now. They're going to be even more passionate about it. Go and talk to a 10-year-old or a Greta about this stuff. You don't have to explain it to them. They will explain it to you. I get people coming, I interview people, they know more about me and what I've done than I know about them, and I've got their CV in front of me.
Mark, I talked to my 6-year-old about it, and she just absolutely blows my mind, because this is their world.
And she's going to be the manager of the future, you know, so you've got to think about that as an audience.
I met her. She's going to be the Prime Minister of the future.
Fantastic. Good for her. Send me her CV.
But I think the interesting thing is actually, again, what the pandemic has done has encouraged people to look at their postage stamp of a home and go, actually, is this the type of world that I want to live my life in?
Yeah.
And actually, I think that Suffolk is probably going to see more people coming into the region, because we're not that far from London. I know sometimes it can feel like we are, but we're not that far from, you know, the urban areas.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I sit on panels, you know, I think, Carol, we met on another panel I was doing, and that was about the Eastern region and how could the Eastern region lead on this, not just at the big businesses in Cambridge University, but all the businesses around here. And, you know, I look at, you know, us sitting here with Felixstowe, Cambridge and the UEA that virtually invented and found the carbon hole in the atmosphere. We should be leading this as an Eastern region. We shouldn't like, oh, we're the Eastern region, we'll just follow. And I think that's for businesses to do. It's not for the council or another Quango or another whatever. It's for businesses to go, we're going to pick this up because it makes good business sense. And we're going to be a bit risky. You know, I think, you know, people said to me over the last, we're 8 years old. People said to me I was mad. Not as in mad HR, but mad. And people said, you know, it's too risky to be an eco-innovator or an eco-innovator leader in your business. But now I think it's riskier to be a laggard.
And there's nothing wrong with being slightly mad, Mark. You're in good company. So,
yeah.
So, can I ask, in terms of sustainability, because that sounds like there's a lot of work to do when there is already a busy day job.
Yeah.
So what's going to be the payoff in terms of things like productivity? What do you envisage could be the payoff for businesses that actually see businesses being able to see a return on the bottom line?
Absolutely. I think it's a really good question. I think where the way we see sustainability is I talk to our clients and go in the same way I outsource my HR to experts like you. I outsource my catering, I outsource my gardening, my cleaning. I think, and that's where Save Money Cut Carbon comes from, is that, you know, we're effectively an outsource at lots of different levels for people that want to do this, that are not lucky or of the size to have a whole sustainability team on their executive floor. I think I describe them as Mark's Magnificent Seven, but I think, I look at them as strengthening your reputation. So we've talked about that. What does that mean in your marketplace? How do you use that? It's absolutely about making cost savings. So, if you look at energy price hikes at the moment, even if you don't, we're called Save Money, Cut Carbon for a reason, that even if you don't care about the carbon, but you just want to save the money, I smile because you've cut carbon as a byproduct, or vice versa. But there are a lot of customers coming to us now that do care about the carbon, but the energy price hikes are wiping out their profit.
Yeah.
Okay, and we've yet to see the impact of that post-April. I've got a big retailer in London, in the south. So I think if you're up here, think about, I don't know, John Lewis in Cambridge or Gerald's in Norwich, that sort of size, 6 stores of that size. The energy price hikes have put their energy bills up by £60,000 a month. The owner just went, okay, I might as well give up and turn it into flats. There's no profit to be made. And some of the paybacks on this stuff is a year, 18 months. We finance it, we do the whole thing. So there's actually around cost savings, and there's direct cost savings straight to the bottom line: energy, water bills, that sort of stuff, as well as the cost savings that I call indirect, about attracting staff, retaining staff, and doing those sorts of things. I think it should shape your business strategy. Why would you not do that? We talked about, winning more business, attracting staff, winning contracts. Everybody that's running most people that run a small business want to be a big business one day. So the way to do that often is, the crumbs off the table of the giants that want your services because you're innovative. So I think it should shape your strategy and give you a competitive edge. I think it increases investor confidence. So if you are looking for investment, absolutely, now you have to demonstrate this sort of stuff. And if you're going to the banks now, green loans are available. You get different rates. There's incentives. There's a lot of this coming over the horizon from the finance world around shaping your kind of investor confidence, if that's the way of describing it. Absolutely. We talked in detail about attracting and retaining staff. I just think that is number one. In my business, my first biggest cost is my people. So why would I not put that right at the top of my list? Customers, look at the amount of people now. They look at the adverts for vegan sausages, and all. Even McDonald's do a vegan burger. The consumers demanding it when McDonald's do that. Consumers are demanding this, and Charlotte's 6-year-old daughter is absolutely going to demand it. So if you want to be in business in 10 years' time, you're going to have to do this.
There's no going to be about it. She already is.
Yeah, and I think the final one for me is it helps manage future risks. So, whether you could just reach for that for your tender that you've left to the last minute, it's around managing the risks in your own building. There was one I read recently that AT&T have spent over £1 billion on repairing damage to equipment and infrastructure from climate-related weather extremes in the last 5 years. Now, we probably sit in East Anglia and go, well, I'm not going to get flooded. I'm not going to do it. But, you need to think about that, because your server could be sitting in their data farm somewhere around the world. So they're my kind of 7, definitely your reputation, cost savings, drive cost savings. Number one, if you're not convinced and you just want to start somewhere, start on reducing your energy and water bills, in your home and in your business. Shape your strategy, increase the confidence to attract investment and money, attract and retain staff. Customers are going to demand it, so why are you not going to do it? And manage future risks.
Charlotte, sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, just to kind of add on to that, and I think they're all really, really good points that you make there, Mark. From a kind of HR perspective, and a lot of these business leaders out there, they wear many hats, and HR is one of those. I think that we have seen this happen repeatedly in the past, and when we're looking at HR, you look at so many different pillars and facets of HR, and it's really important that this sustainability piece absolutely flows through each of those pillars. So, and we're looking at each of those pillars through that sustainability lens. So, what's the impact on recruitment and induction? What's the impact? How can we bring that looking at the through the sustainability lens for reward and recognition, through performance improvement, training training and development, looking at those processes, those procedures, those practices of how can we draw all of that through to really, and you know, we've done it historically. We have done it when health and safety first came in. It was very much through all of those practices, looking through the health and safety lens.
And learn the jargon.
Yeah, absolutely. But just keeping it really, really simple. When health and safety, when GDPR first came in, when equality, diversity and inclusion, we had to look through each of those strands through that lens. And I think sustainability, we've just spoken, you know, for the last half an hour of all of the benefits and the fundamental impact that it can make on your business. Why wouldn't you? It's really important that we're actually joining the dots on all of that as well. It can be really, you know, all consuming if you allow it to be. It can be really scary. And Carol, earlier you said, you know, what's our experience? I think that it's about that overwhelm. It's that analysis paralysis of where do I start? Because do you know what? I've got a day job as well. And I think the reality is that this isn't about being led by just one person. Don't get me wrong. I think leadership is absolutely crucial, because role modeling great behavior is really important, living and breathing those values. So you can't, as a leader, expect to, you know, pull up in a, you know, fuel guzzling car and jet setting off here, there and everywhere, and, you know, not really living and breathing those values. But it's not just about the leader of a business, the leadership team of the business. It's about distilling that and giving everybody an opportunity to join the conversation, to impact on it. Right at the start, you know, Mark was saying about really embedding this notion of sustainability throughout the culture of the business. How do you get people engaged? It's about starting that conversation. It's about really giving them a clear sense of purpose, taking their opportunities. A lot of people are doing it at home. You know, we've joked about my 6-year-old and, you know, the latest projects and things that she's coming from school. We're having to do that. Actually, you know, we're all mindful of the energy bills and, you know, how we're reducing costs at home. There's a lot of initiatives which we are naturally doing as part of our daily lives. There is such an opportunity to bring that into business and to share that responsibility. Sustainability champions, that's another initiative which we're absolutely seeing, you know, throughout our client base, and having those people that are really passionate about it. You know, they're volunteering for it. It's a bit, you know, in some businesses, it's like the first aiders. You don't force people to be a first aider. You don't force me to be a first aider, certainly, because I would just be horrendous in that kind of situation. But finding, you know, inviting people that really have a passion and interest in this to drive it through your business, that's where the ideas will come. That's how you build engagement, and that's how you create the impact within your organisation.
I think one litmus test we always do is you just go around your staff today and go, how much is the energy, water and carbon footprint of this business? They don't even know what the bill is. Okay. And what's also very interesting at the moment is the shift has moved as we're working from home, that actually the carbon footprint, energy, water, waste has gone onto you and your bill in the home. Because when you go and make a cup of tea, you used to walk to, in my building, you walk to my kitchen and I pay for that. But now you don't. You go and click your kettle on and you put the waste in your bin and you leave your lights on and you've got your heating on while you're working from home. So I've got, you know, corporate clients are going, actually, our costs have gone down massively. So we've got, you know, we do something called Home Club, which is a thing we do for the home where you get an app and you go around your house and it tells you all the things you can do and it gives you exclusive pricing and all that sort of stuff. But we can measure that for the corporate behind it. So we can actually say, you know, you helped 200 of your staff reduce their bills and educate them in the home. Well, we can actually track it for ESG. But I've got companies coming to me at the moment that are buying that for their staff for the year. Okay, it's only $4.99 a month, so it's not huge, but they're basically saying, I've just saved all this money on what I would have done coffee in the canteen. And if I can help Charlotte in her home when energy bills go up, reduce her bill by £20, she's going to come back to my workplace and go, how can I put a few zeros on that? So I don't think it finishes when you walk out the door because of what COVID's done to us. You know, I've got a lot of people going, yeah, my carbon footprint's gone down a lot this year. Well, that's because you've had nobody in your building. But actually it hasn't gone down, it's just shifted into everybody's personal space. So I think there's some really interesting crossover there, that it doesn't, you know, for us, we promote a lot that it doesn't finish when at your door. Does that make sense? In your business, it's about the extension of that both ways.
So picking up on that, Mark, I think it's interesting you talk about the fact that many businesses will be saying, oh, thank God my carbon footprint has gone down. I don't think that there are a lot of businesses that may be aware of what their carbon footprint actually is, to know actually how much it has gone down. So where should a business start? So to know how many double-decker buses, to know, what is it a business should do? How would they recognise that they should be doing it, but it's where do you actually start?
Yes, I think from our point of view, we do that with a free carbon mentor call. And anyone that goes to Save Money Carbon site and looks at what we call the SaaS business, sustainability as a service, you just click the button, it autos, you fill it in. We have a carbon mentors here. It's all on Zoom, I think. You do a 30-minute call. I describe it as don't be scared. It's a little bit like having I meet Charlotte in a cafe and we're just talking about sustainability. Where are you? That then gives us a starting point of where you are on your journey and what you do. Then there's a number of different tools, from desk-based analysis of carbon, which is often driven by your SG&A, so your accounts, how much you spend on transport. It's those kind of calculations that we can do, through to what we call a scope 1, scope 2, so more jargon, scientific stuff, scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 audit, where we'll come into your buildings. If it's a big building, our energy managers come in and do it. But if it's a small building, we send you an app and you go down and do it yourself, that will actually show you this is where you are now, and these are all the things you could do to improve that. Okay, that gives you I guess it's a bit like an HR thing. These are the staff I've got now and where I am, and these are the new hires I need to do and the skills I need to fill. And then when you've got there, as Charlotte mentioned. So, we do that at a very pragmatic level. There are lots of calculators on the government sites and bits and pieces. You can type your stuff in. I saw one the other day for surgeries. It goes right down to a pair of rubber gloves, a pair of scissors, and a pot of pills. But don't get too hung up about that. Start that. Scope 1 and scope 2, the first place to start is your electricity bill. Are you buying that from a renewable supply, a genuine renewable supply, not someone that is a big company that sticks what they call a RECO over it? So for a couple of quid, they can buy a few trees and call it green. We have a number of tools that do that. When we audit, we actually look at your energy supply, and the first thing we say is actually only 20% of your energy supplies come from renewable sources. It could be more if you switched and changed. So that's where I often start, is the energy and the water consumption in the business. And it's quite simple. Look at the supply side. Where's it coming from? Is it a renewable source? That's the first place to start. And then what I call demand side is, where are you using that? Which is, remember our parents used to say, turn the lights off. I've still got teenage children. I go around turning lights off all the time. But, it was, in those days, it was about carbon. It was about saving. Turn the light out when you leave your bedroom. It can be as simple as that on the demand side. Start reducing what you're using. I'm not a great fan. I'm a great fan of planting trees, but I'm not a great fan of offset. I was on the BBC radio the other day, and someone said to me, what do you think of offset? And I said, well, it's like committing a crime in the street and then paying for someone else to go to jail while you go on holiday. We need to reduce what we're actually putting into the atmosphere, not just, well, I put a load in, but I buy a load of trees somewhere in the Amazon and hope in 50 years' time it's going to offset it. Reduce what you use, because that's going to affect your bottom line.
Thank you. Charlotte, what can businesses do to start getting to see who those influencers are, who those sustainability champions? What could they actually do to start engaging people in a conversation?
I think it's about asking the question. It's about communication. Everything revolves around communication. And I've done many of these webinars, and this is a key piece, which doesn't always, just come out of my lips. It comes out of lips of other speakers as well. Communication is the key. Find out what people are interested in. What are they doing at home? The reality is, not everybody, I know that we're all really excited about this, that we're interested, that we can see the benefits. Not everyone will be. And so identifying who really is passionate about it, what their level of understanding of it is, because obviously, at the start of this, there was a hell of a lot of jargon, and, it's breaking through and finding out what are people's understandings, what are the common misperceptions, making it as simple as possible, making it as accessible as possible. And then, really bringing it to life. So as Mark's just said, what is our starting position? What is our impact right here, right now? And what's within our power to change? And starting on that journey and identifying some kind of key targets, not trying to take on the world, but just to see that there is an actual difference and impact if we just adjust, some of our behaviours, because it is about behaviours. it is about that change in mindset. Without there being a change in mindset, there will not be a change in behavior. So I think there is very much that education piece as well. And I think it's about how you can continue the discussion, because this is kind of one of my pet hates, that something becomes really topical, everyone gets excited about it, and then we put loads of investment, loads of resource behind it, and then 12 months later it's absolutely died a death. It started with a big bang and then it fizzled out just like a firework. So keep that communication going, keep the interest there, and you can do things, you know, look at your teams, how you can create healthy competitions with it. So I don't know, who can you know, take a cold shower for 3 minutes a day for a week, run 10k in 10 days, go vegan for a week. All of these initiatives, you can make it fun, as well as bringing it into the day-to-day life, because people are doing these things at home. They're having to. It's a fact of life. Costs are going up and we have to look to control it, and we're doing that at home. So how can we bring those initiatives into work?
I think Charlotte's point there is fun. You know, we all came out of COP26. We did a big 6-figure piece of research with Ogilvy's behavioural science group last year, where we went out to the UK and we talked about what does this mean. And the feedback was, look, stop scaring me with the David Attenborough pictures. I get it. We're in trouble, all right. I'm time poor. I don't want it to cost me any more money, but if you can make it really easy for me and put it all in one place, I'm up for it, in simple terms. And I want it to be a bit of fun. Don't scare me. If you scare me, I run. Okay. And I think Charlotte just said that, you know, turn it into a bit of fun. You know, the technical term for this stuff in your buildings is decarbonisation or retrofit. We call it sustainable swaps. Swap your toilet roll, light your fire with do little things. You don't have to be, you know, and turn it into a bit of fun. And I think particularly if I was driving HR, you know, particularly in April now, the media is going to be full of energy bill hikes. And it used to be just like, oh, that's unfortunately for people that maybe weren't on the higher earnings, it's going to hurt everybody. You could be on a big salary, you're going to end up with a big energy bill if you look at what's going on. So maybe start there, because not everyone understands a ton of carbon, but everyone understands £20 off their bill. You don't have to explain whether it's £20 off your bill at home, or it's £200 off your bill for a small business, or it's £20,000 off your bill for a big business. You don't have to quantify that. People get it. And I think there's a great opportunity to use the energy crisis, if you like, that will be all over the media as a way of, I go back to my scope 1 supply, start there. If you had get a team together and say, how are we going to help you and your home and the business reduce its energy bills? You're cutting carbon by default.
And then that goes around to that employment destination piece, you know, that employer brand. Why are you that employee destination? Why would people want to come and work for you? One of the things that we've mentioned quite a few times here is the fact that we are requiring people to work more flexibly, to work from home. And with energy bills going up, how are we supporting people with that? Yeah. Because, you know, that is hugely impactful. And this goes around that employee value proposition of, well, it's not just about salary. It's what else can we do to be supporting the team? How else can we show that value? And I think certainly for leaders, you know, a lot of it was around that whole kind of shareholder value and really focusing on boosting that. And actually there is this mindset shift of that stakeholder value and focusing on that. So it's not just about providing that value for the shareholders, it's for all of the stakeholders, whether that be the employees, the customers, the suppliers, partners, the communities, the planet. That is what is fundamentally important if we want our business to continue and to flourish.
I think if you kind of go back to, you know, college days and look at kind of Milton Friedman as from an economy point of view, saying, you know, the purpose of business is purely to serve shareholders. I think that statement is dead now. And his book was, you know, well read when we were all studying stuff years ago, but I think it's finished now. And I think it's, as Charlotte said, I think it has to be more wider than that. And even if it's not dictated by rules, and, you know, this won't be a fad because it's in legislation, it's in the Climate Change Act. This is not going away. Okay, this is not like what do you call it, when we all thought the computers were going to blow up in January 2000, whatever it was. This is going to be here till 2050. You know, there's some big scary bits of data floating around out there. Swiss Reassurance said the other day that, you know, they think 1/5 of the global GDP will be disappear by 2050 due to climate change if we don't do something about it. I mean, that's going to, it's not about us, it's about your 6-year-old daughter, and those sorts of things. So that starts by innovative leadership in the smallest businesses. Small businesses can do it quick because the owner just sits there and goes, I'm going to do this. Big businesses have to go and have a load of meetings and board meetings and steering groups and all sorts of stuff. I think it can be led in the Eastern region by smaller businesses that go, this is just good business, and make it fun.
I think it's interesting. John, lovely John, has just put it on the chat. The key is we're all stakeholders now, and I think that's absolutely right.
Right. You can't have the world can't go on wanting unlimited growth. We all run businesses, and if you have a good year, then next year's got to be even better. On a finite planet, we only have one planet. It's just the base economics do not stack up. We can't do more if there's one planet. So I think it's interesting. If you talk to any business owner, they want a sustainable business, and I think what we're now saying is that sustainability has perhaps now had ever more resonance about what that sustainability actually now looks like. So questions are starting to come in. If I can just ask, so if we're looking at, and I think Charlotte, you talked about it, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. When it comes to looking at KPIs to use to help with the measurements of carbon reduction, what should we be using? What should businesses be using, or households be using? Is that to me? I'm happy to take that one. So I'm going to go back. There are quite a lot of data sets out there. There's the science-based targets that, the government has calculations effectively that they change quite regularly on how you calculate your carbon from travel, from bits and pieces. There are a lot of tools out there to look at. That's probably where to start. But I would argue each business needs to set its own KPIs. If you just think about environmental, what am I going to do? Social, what does that mean to your people? And governance. I mean, they are kind of very generic words that you could apply to anything, couldn't it? In a way. So I would urge people to look at their own businesses and think, what am I doing on my supply side? Do I know my energy bills? Do I know where they're going? Do I know where it comes? What do we do about demand side? And the demand side is just purely how you use and consume things around your business. It becomes more complicated when you get into what they call scope 3, which is what your supply chain does below you. Mm-hmm. Okay, but that is more challenging because where did that desk I've just ordered come from, and all of that sort of stuff, and what's the carbon footprint? But start simple and make small changes, and the same applies to the home. Okay, we all probably do the easy bits, which is recycle our wine bottles. We probably put a bit of plastics in one bin versus the other bin, but there's so many more things we could do. We have an app it's based on something I don't know called Tinder, where you just go around your house and it says you're in the kitchen, do you use cling film? And if you swipe left if you got it, and you swipe right if you haven't, and it tells you could replace it. What does cling film do to the planet, what you could replace it with? It's just about, as Charlotte says, about early education and people going, I didn't even know I could replace it with that. So that's where I think the start is. In any business. And then there's a bit of basics. If I can jump in, I always do my light bulb demo. We always show, we've got stuff here around the 60-watt light bulb. Put a 60-watt light bulb on in your home or in your business for 10 hours a day at 60 watts at 11, 12 pence a unit, which is really low. And, it's going to cost you £24.38 to run for a year. Okay, it's going to be more than that now because energy prices have doubled, but we use this example quite a lot. Swap it for an LED light bulb, and this is just one I happen to pick up off my desk. It's going to cost you £3.83 a year to run. That one lasts 2,000 hours. That one lasts 50,000 hours. So less landfill, less product. You don't have to be an ESG expert to work out how many of these you've got around your house that might be on 10 hours a day or 5 hours a day. So, it's that sort of linear swaps is where I urge people to start their journey. It was this, now it's that.
So can you make money from having a good philosophy about ESG?
Oh, there's a loaded question. Well, I would say that because I'm the CEO of a fairly fast growing company that does that. And I call it doing well by doing good. And I have investors that, we're probably, to be quite transparent, 10 million of equity into our platform and what we've built here. And trust me, every single one of them wants their money back in multiples. We're all in that situation. So I think the answer is yes. I think you can. I think at two levels. Think about it in your business as making your business more profitable, retaining your people, reducing your energy bills. Why would you not want to improve the profitability of your business? And then there are other businesses out there that can think outside of the box and go, actually, does this help me win more business? Can I create a business out of this where I'm helping other people? you set up an HR company because you saw an opportunity as an outsource to support people with their people needs and all the challenges that we've discussed today. You know, I have an HR department here, and the stuff they have to deal with all the legislation and bits and pieces needs organizations like you to come and help. We're just doing the same, and there is opportunity to make money, and that could be that you won the tender. That's how I look at it. Or it could be you've set a business up to actually facilitate helping people on this journey. I'm also a bit anti-consultants, and they might realize a consultant, so apologies for that. I think the difference, what you're doing is about the how. It's helping people actually do stuff rather than just come in and create a green folder and make a load of suggestions, because the planet needs action. It doesn't need talk.
Absolutely. And I think that's the really important point there. And in terms of consultancy, and we're finding this even with our recruitment, the perception of what consultants are. We are the in-house HR, outsourced in-house HR team, because it's about really that ownership, that accountability, and going back to the measurements of what that can look like. And I think it is about being, staking out that ground, but going back to looking through all of the threads and the strands of HR. I'm a HR practitioner. Of course, I'm going to continually bring it back to that, but this is how you create the real impact within your business. And how are you measuring that through each of those strands? So how are you, looking at recruitment and induction in terms of sustainability? What targets are you setting? And I think, from HR is always seen as this very intangible art, really. It's all about people, and you just chat every day. Well, no, you don't, because you can fundamentally impact it. How are you reducing your costs? How are you looking at driving efficiencies? How are you looking at the long-term effects of everything that you put in, and holding people to account, and threading that through every element of the business? So, targeting your senior team and setting them targets and objectives that are specifically focused on that sustainability piece. What outcomes are we looking for? And then threading that through the whole business as well. That's how you create the culture which is going to impact your bottom line. We're on this journey. It's coming, it's happening. So if we don't look at it, then there's going to be no business.
And I think measurement is, like any new environment, and this is a new environment, measurement's the key. I mean, that's where we've invested all our money. Is we could measure it when we did big projects. So we look after people at Hilton Hotels and Addenbrooke's Hospital, all sorts of things. We could measure that, but how do we measure it for millions of smaller businesses? And that's been our big dilemma that we've just about cracked now, where we've taken all the savings data from 1,000+ projects across the UK and applied them online, so that when you buy a toilet roll, you can look onto your dashboard and say that had reduced my plastic by this, my energy by that, or whatever it might be. And that's something we've been trying to crack for the last 3 years, because you get scale when people can do it themselves and get online and see it. You don't want a consultant walking around your house, and that's been our big challenge, is how do we create quite a unique business in the East, where we can actually let you look at your little dashboard, or the dashboard for your cycling club or your team or whatever it might be, and see the impact you're having, because people treasure what they can measure. And, in HR, we all know what we earn. We all know how many staff we've got. We all know the costs. We all know you can measure that stuff. And, I think over the years, HR's gone from, as you say, soft stuff to being a science. And this needs to go the same way, but it needs to do it at scale that, Charlotte, your 6-year-old daughter can log in and go, look, mummy, we changed our toilet rolls, our cleaning, our this and that, and 5 light bulbs. This is the impact we've had now and in the future. And that's what we've been struggling with. I'm going to be honest with you, a team of 50 or 60 people here to crack. How could we do that for everybody, not just for the big customers that can afford to have our energy managers come in and measure that? And we're really, really close to that, and excited by the fact we can push that out online and you can see what you're doing. So it's really interesting.
So if you've got any questions, then please do put them into the Q&A, because we've got about 7 minutes left before we're due to wind up. One question I did have, Mark, which was, obviously we've talked a little bit about the fact that customers are going to be be a bit more discerning about who they choose to place their business with. What information should businesses be sharing in the open forum to enable clients and customers to make that informed decision?
I think it's really about your purpose. And what I mean by that is, like everyone will have on their website, about us, meet the team, what we do. We had to sit down and think about, actually, some of the first place many people go to have a look is your website of your company. Create a page on what you're doing with this. And I'm not talking about look at our scientific carbon. I'm talking about show the pictures of you picking litter up in your local community. Show what Charlotte's 6-year-old is doing. That's what purpose is often about. That's what people are really looking for. They're not looking for I can afford a really expensive consultant that tells me my carbon footprint is 232 tons or whatever it means, scope 1, scope 2. That's what people resonate with, because that's how people buy now, isn't it? We buy differently. We look online, we compare, we see what other people are doing on social media. Look at TripAdvisor. So my starting point always with this is, go look at your touch points. It used to be, I'll hang a plaque saying investors and people in my reception. But I think it's on your website. I would urge people to go and think about how you tell your story and be open. If you're at the beginning of your story, that's exciting too. You don't have to be at the end of it, and you'll have these stories in your staff now. If you go out now and stop everyone and go and have a chat to them, you'll find that people are vegans, the people that do go litter picking, people that do this at home, there's people recycling clothes. They're doing all this in your business right now. You just don't know about it.
I think also, just to add on to that, it's not about that kind of sparkler situation that you put all of the focus and emphasis, and then we've got this amazing page on the website. It's about making sure that every single method of communication, all of the platforms that you are using, the people that are engaging with your customers and your suppliers, actually that they're all part of that process, that there's consistency. Because when we're doing research, we're not just looking at a website, we're looking at everything, and all is there a consistency in message, or actually is it that I'm just being sold a dream and an image, but the reality is something very different? And then that loops back round to the people, because who has the engagement with your suppliers, who has the engagement with your customers, with your prospects? It's your people. And if they're delivering a very different message to what you're portraying outwardly, then that mismatch is going to be easily picked up, and then that's going to do huge damage to your reputation. So live it, breathe it, and keep it real and realistic. And I think also it's about not seeking perfection, because even though we've had quite it's been a great conversation, it's been quite a light touch conversation, I think it's probably prompted more questions than anything, and it's kind of expanded people's mind as to how much there is to offer. It's not about waiting, creating a great plan, looking for perfection and delivering it. It's about just starting with the small stuff.
I always laugh, everybody off this call, come off the call and go and check your toilet rolls. Do they come from an eco supplier? Start something that you just use every day in your business. It's that really easy. And I agree with Charlotte, it's got to be genuine. Particularly the younger generation can see through it in seconds, because they're smart on social media. They can smell a stock photography image from a mile away. Make it genuine, and be careful of greenwash. There's going to be a backlash coming over the horizon around big businesses, particularly, that are look how green we are, and then they get caught. So make it genuine, because everyone's at the start of the journey. This is a long journey. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. This is a long journey. And if you say you've nailed it all, I go into and I see people sometimes, we've done it all. I'm like, oh, have you? Well done, you.
It's a continual journey of marginal gains, I think is the expression.
Over a very long period of time. And it's about sharing voice. If you've done something great, share it.
So I've got a lovely question from John, who has said, we've talked quite a lot about the carrot, but what about the stick? So what's coming down the track in terms of regulation, mandatory targets, which SMEs need to be aware of and be ready for?
So I guess I'll pick that one up again. So, the government has tried various different methodology. If you're into the jargon, we had CRC, so there's carbon tax, we've had ESOS, we've got SCR. They're all different kind of regulatory things that the government has tried, I guess, from different sizes. I think there's two answers. I think about it. One answer is about you being right at a regulatory level, so that you can fill in, as we talked about, tenders and bits and pieces. And I guess I'm being a bit generic here, but it is coming. You know, they also at political level, you know, a government's never going to force Charlotte in a home because Charlotte could go and vote somewhere else, but they will force businesses. And you can see now from COP26 announcements of not only are you going to have to say where you are, but you're going to have to show how you've improved. So we're talking to a lot of organisations at the moment that do have the luxury of having ESG or sustainability managers. They've gone to the consultant and got their carbon footprint, but they've got a report on it next year, and it's going to start in the annual reports. You're seeing schools and academies now that are having, you know, audit requirements in around what they're doing for sustainability on par with what they would have for financial audits. Great. So it's definitely coming over the horizon. I think it's going to be a while before it filters down to the smaller, you know, the SME, smaller businesses, mainly because it's more difficult for the government to police that and administer that, but it is absolutely coming, because you can't, Boris Johnson can't stand up and say we're going to save all this stuff. They can't put it in statute in the law and then not just like saying we're going to do taxes but then never collect them. There's also a change I think is going to go on. We have it here. If you want to attract staff, give them a Tesla for a company car. There's my big tip. But they drive them here, they plug in for free electricity all day long. Well, what does that look like at HR level? Because there's no benefit in kind, there's no tax. If we all drive electric cars in the future, the government's going to lose a massive tax income on benefit in kind. You know, my finance director's got a Tesla. I don't think he drives backwards and forwards on my electricity all day long. We can't track it. We can track it, but the government can't. So that's the other thing I think is going to come over the horizon, is someone eventually in the government going, hang on a minute, no petrol stations, no benefit in kind tax. Oh my God, we're billions and billions of pounds in a hole. Quick, what do we do to measure this in organizations and try and replenish that tax deficit? That's what I think will drive it.
So watch this space then.
For the SME, bigger businesses, absolutely, it's already there. But for the smaller businesses, SME is a very wide definition. I think that's what's going to happen here. Watch this space, but it's coming, so be prepared. Great.
Thank you. I'm very conscious we are now at 11:30, so I just wanted to say we don't appear to have any further questions. So on behalf of everybody who's joined us today, I'd like to say a thank you to Mark and to Charlotte for joining us. I hope that you found the session really helpful. We will be sending out to you a link which will contain information about the Carbon Mentor Call, and also there'll be a link to our capability scorecard. So this gives you a real opportunity to help understand, give you a good opportunity to help to understand what your culture is like within your organisation, to determine your readiness for this sort of program. Thank you very much. And if you would be interested in joining our newsletter, again, you'll get that in our feedback form. So all it leaves me to do is say thank you very much for joining us, and I wish you a very good and enjoyable day. Thank you.